Good evening. You've arrived at a quiet place meant for rest. There is nothing you need to do here, nothing you need to focus on, nothing you need to remember later. This is a calm science narration, spoken slowly and designed to remain in the background as you rest. You don't need to listen closely. You don't need to follow each sentence from beginning to end. If your attention drifts, that's completely fine. If the words become distant or unclear, that's expected. Right now, your body is already doing what it knows how to do. Breathing continues without effort. Your weight is supported by the surface beneath you. There is no posture to hold and nothing to adjust. This is not a story that moves toward a conclusion. It doesn't build toward an idea or a moment of understanding. It stays steady, predictable, and quiet. Everything you'll hear is based on well-established scientific knowledge, observations that have been measured and confirmed over time. Nothing speculative, nothing meant to surprise or impress. The information is shared softly, without urgency. Because the natural processes being described do not happen quickly, and they do not depend on attention. There will be no sudden changes in tone, no shifts in pace, no moments that require a response. If you fall asleep at any point, nothing important is missed. If you remain awake and hear fragments of the narration, that's fine too. The order does not matter. The meaning does not need to stay intact. You may notice pauses between phrases. Those pauses are intentional. They allow the nervous system time to settle, without being asked to do anything at all. This space is meant to feel stable, unchanging, safe to ignore. As the narration continues, the focus will remain gentle and even. Words may repeat, ideas may return in slightly different forms, not to reinforce them, but to maintain rhythm. For now, it's enough to be here, resting, listening if you want to, not listening if you don't. The science will unfold quietly in the background, at a pace that does not rush, at a volume that does not demand attention. Nothing here depends on an outcome. Nothing needs to be completed. You can simply remain as you are, supported, breathing, unchanged. The narration will continue, slowly, evenly. As you continue resting, there is no need to change anything about how you are positioned. If your body is already comfortable, it can remain exactly as it is. Breathing is happening on its own. There is no need to guide it, no need to slow it down or deepen it. Each breath arrives and then leaves without effort. You may notice the gentle movement of the chest or the abdomen, or you may not notice it at all. Both are fine. The muscles of the face can remain soft. The area around the eyes does not need to hold any expression. The jaw does not need to stay in place. The tongue can rest naturally without being positioned. There is nothing here that needs to be relaxed on command. The body does not respond well to instructions when it is tired. It responds more easily to quiet and consistency. The shoulders are supported by gravity. They do not need to be held up or pulled down. They can simply remain where they are, carried by the surface beneath you. Your arms are resting. They do not need symmetry. They do not need to feel heavy or light in any particular way. They are simply present, without requiring attention. If there is tension anywhere in the body, it does not need to disappear. Rest does not require complete relaxation. It only requires enough safety for the nervous system to stop scanning for change. Lower in the body, the legs are already supported. There is nothing to balance, nothing to stabilize. The weight of them is being carried without effort. The feet do not need to be noticed. They do not need warmth, tingling, or any specific sensation. They can remain quiet at the far end of the body. As these sensations stay steady, the brain begins to register the lack of demand. There is no task, no response required, no signal that something needs to happen next. This is often when mental activity starts to slow, not because it is being forced to, but because there is nothing pressing to react to. Thoughts may still appear. They may be fragments of the day, images, unfinished phrases. They do not need to be pushed away. They do not need to be followed. They can pass through the mind the same way background sounds pass through a quiet room. If your attention drifts away from these words, that is completely fine. The body does not need continuous input. It responds just as well to steady tone and repetition. The voice you are hearing is not here to guide you somewhere specific. It is here to remain consistent, predictable, easy to ignore. There is nowhere else to be, nothing else to prepare for. The night does not require readiness. You can continue resting exactly as you are, breathing, supported, unchanged. The body already understands this process. It does not need help. The narration will continue at the same even pace, and the space around you can remain quiet and still. As the body remains settled, attention often becomes less focused on specific sensations. It doesn't disappear. It simply becomes broader, less defined. There is no clear moment when this shift happens, no signal that marks a change. It unfolds gradually, without needing to be noticed. In the natural world, many processes move in this same way. They do not begin with clear boundaries. They do not end with clear conclusions. Temperature changes slowly as evening turns into night. Light fades without a precise moment when day becomes dark. Even sound tends to soften over time as activity decreases and distances feel larger. These changes do not require coordination. They do not respond to observation. They continue whether or not anyone is paying attention. The body is familiar with this kind of rhythm. It developed within environments shaped by repetition and gradual variation, not constant urgency. Because of that, slow and predictable patterns tend to feel safe. They do not demand quick reactions. They do not signal that something needs to be solved. In science, many systems behave this way as well, especially those that operate across long periods of time. Once conditions are established, these systems often continue along stable paths, not because they are being maintained, but because nothing is forcing them to change. They are guided by simple physical rules applied consistently. The details can be complex, but the overall motion remains steady. This steadiness is part of what makes such systems easy to listen to. There is no sudden shift to anticipate, no hidden moment waiting to appear. In the background of everyday life, countless slow processes are always underway. They do not interrupt. They do not compete for attention. They form a quiet foundation beneath faster events, a layer that remains unchanged even as surface details come and go. The mind does not need to track these processes closely. It only needs to sense that they are there, stable, ongoing. This kind of awareness does not sharpen focus, it softens it. There is no need to imagine detailed scenes or hold clear images. If images appear on their own, they can pass just as easily. What matters more is the sense of continuity, of movement that does not rush toward an outcome, of time passing without pressure. The voice continues in the same steady way, not to hold attention, but to provide a consistent reference point, something predictable enough that the mind does not need to stay alert. This is often when thinking becomes less structured, less verbal, not because it stops entirely, but because it no longer needs to organize itself around tasks or decisions. Rest does not arrive all at once. It settles in layers, first in the body, then in the breath, and gradually in the spaces between thoughts. There is no need to notice when that happens, no need to mark the transition. The process continues on its own, and as the narration moves forward, it will remain with systems that behave in this same quiet way. Systems shaped by time, by repetition, by conditions that change slowly. The pace will remain even, the tone unchanged. Nothing new is required from you here. The narration will continue, gently, without hurry. As the narration continues, it stays with systems that change slowly, systems shaped by time rather than moments. A forest is one of these systems. In scientific terms, a forest is an ecosystem. It is an area where trees are the dominant form of plant life and where many other organisms exist alongside them. There is no single moment when a forest begins. It does not arrive fully formed. It develops gradually as conditions remain suitable over long periods of time. A forest is not a single object. It is not a unified structure. It is a collection of living and non-living components interacting within the same space. Trees are the most visible part of this system. They grow upward and outward, slowly increasing in size over many years. But they do not exist on their own. Beneath and around them are smaller plants, microorganisms, and animals. There are also physical elements that remain just as important: soil, water, air, light. Together, these elements form relationships that do not require intention. They are not coordinated. They are the result of physical and biological processes unfolding under consistent conditions. A forest does not function because it is managed or directed. It functions because energy moves through it in predictable ways. Sunlight reaches the leaves of trees and other plants. That energy is used to build and maintain physical structure. Growth happens slowly, guided by availability rather than demand. Water moves through the system as well. It enters the soil, travels through roots, and eventually returns to the atmosphere. This movement follows gradients of pressure and temperature, not purpose. Air circulates through open spaces between branches and trunks. Gases are exchanged continuously, without pause. These processes do not speed up when they are observed. They do not slow down when they are ignored. A forest does not respond to attention. It does not adjust based on awareness. Because of this, it is easy to misunderstand a forest as something static. From a short-term perspective, it may appear unchanged from day to day. But measured across longer periods, change is always present. Trees grow, some die, others take their place. The overall structure remains recognizable, even as individual components come and go. This persistence does not require planning. It emerges from repetition. As long as conditions remain within certain ranges, the system continues. Temperature, moisture, soil composition, light availability. When those conditions shift, change follows. But it happens gradually, not all at once. A forest does not resist change. It does not adapt with intention. It simply responds to physical limits. Different types of forests exist in different regions of the world. They vary based on climate and geography. Some are shaped by cold temperatures and long winters, others by warmth and consistent rainfall. Some exist where water is abundant, others where it is limited. Despite these differences, the underlying processes remain similar. Energy enters, materials move, structure builds slowly over time. There is no single correct form a forest must take. There is only what remains stable under a given set of conditions. For now, there is no need to hold on to these details. They do not need to be remembered. They are being shared softly to establish a sense of steadiness, of systems that continue without urgency. The narration will remain with this same calm pace, and the description of the forest will continue in simple, even terms. Nothing here requires effort. Nothing needs to be followed closely. The system being described will continue, quietly, gradually. As the description continues, it remains with structure rather than events. Not with what happens in a moment, but with what stays in place over time. Forests are often described in layers. This is not a strict division. It is simply a way of noticing how space is used as plants grow at different heights. The uppermost layer is formed by the tallest trees. Their branches spread outward, creating a broad cover above the ground. This layer is sometimes called the canopy. It receives the greatest amount of sunlight. Leaves here are exposed to wind, rain, and changing temperatures. The canopy does not form all at once. It develops slowly as individual trees grow taller over many years. Some reach the upper layer, others remain below. Light passing through this upper layer is filtered. Some of it is absorbed. Some of it continues downward, softer and less direct. Below the canopy is a region where smaller trees and tall shrubs grow. This area receives less light. Conditions here are more stable, with less exposure to wind. Plants in this layer grow more slowly. Their leaves are often shaped to capture light efficiently. Growth is guided by availability, not speed. This middle space does not have a sharp boundary. It blends gradually with the areas above and below it. Lower still is the area closer to the forest floor. Here, light is limited. Temperatures change less dramatically. Plants in this layer tend to be small: ferns, young saplings, low-growing vegetation. Their presence depends on long periods of consistency. If conditions remain steady, they persist. If conditions change, they adjust slowly. These vertical layers do not operate independently. They exist together, sharing space and resources over time. Air moves through all of them. Water passes between them. Materials cycle continuously without pause. There is no hierarchy in this structure. No layer controls the others. They remain arranged this way because it is stable, because it allows energy to move through the system gradually. This layered form does not demand attention. It does not shift suddenly. It remains in place as long as conditions allow. And as the narration continues, it will move gently downward toward the forest floor itself, where processes become even slower. Beneath the visible layers of branches and leaves, the forest continues in quieter ways. Closer to the ground, the structure becomes less open. Movement slows. Changes are smaller and harder to notice from one moment to the next. The forest floor is covered by materials that have fallen over time. Leaves, small branches, fragments of bark. This layer is sometimes called leaf litter. It does not accumulate quickly. It builds gradually, season after season, year after year. As these materials settle, they form a soft covering over the soil. This covering reduces exposure. It holds moisture. It buffers temperature changes. Nothing here needs to be arranged. Gravity places each piece where it lands. Below this surface layer is the soil itself. It does not have a fixed boundary. It blends upward into leaf litter and downward into mineral layers formed much earlier. Soil develops slowly, extremely slowly. It is shaped by the breakdown of organic material and the movement of water through small spaces. Particles shift, nutrients disperse. Structure forms over long periods of time. Roots extend into this space, not all at once, gradually, following paths where resistance is low. These roots do not search with intention. They grow in response to physical conditions, where water is available, where space allows. Below the surface, activity continues without sound. Microorganisms process material at a pace that does not hurry. Chemical reactions unfold steadily. There are no clear markers of progress here, no visible milestones.
From above, this part of the forest is easy to overlook. It appears still, unchanging. But over time, it provides the foundation for everything above it. Support, stability, continuity. The lower layers do not compete with the upper ones. They simply remain in place, allowing the system to persist. These layers change far more slowly than leaves or branches. Their timescale is measured in years and decades, not moments. Because of this, they rarely draw attention. They do not announce activity. They do not signal change. They continue quietly, forming a stable base beneath the forest's visible structure. And as the narration moves forward, it will stay with processes that unfold at this same unhurried pace. Nothing sudden, nothing urgent, just systems remaining in place, supported by time. As the structure of the forest remains in place, other processes continue moving through it, not as events, but as flows. Energy enters a forest gradually. It does not arrive all at once. It comes from sunlight, reaching the system a little at a time. Light moves downward from above. Some of it is intercepted by leaves in the upper layers. Some continues through gaps, becoming more scattered as it travels. When light reaches the surface of a leaf, it can be absorbed. That energy is used to support chemical reactions that build physical material. This process is known as photosynthesis. It does not happen quickly. It does not happen continuously at the same rate. It depends on light availability, temperature, and water. When conditions are within certain ranges, it proceeds. When conditions shift, it slows. Through this process, carbon dioxide from the air is incorporated into plant tissue. Carbon becomes part of leaves, stems, and roots. Over time, this material adds to the physical structure of the forest. This accumulation is gradual, measured in small increases spread across many growing seasons. Carbon does not remain fixed in one place. It moves through the system. Some of it remains in living plants for long periods of time. Some returns to the atmosphere through respiration.
Some enters the soil as leaves and other materials fall. These movements do not follow a schedule. They respond to conditions that change slowly. The flow of energy through a forest does not create a peak moment. There is no point where it reaches completion. Instead, it continues as long as light reaches the leaves and basic conditions remain stable. Time plays an important role in this process. Not time measured in hours or days, but time measured in years. Trees grow slowly. Their increase in size from one year to the next is often small, so small that it cannot be seen without careful measurement. Growth does not follow a straight line. Some years add more material, other years add less. Across long periods, these small changes accumulate. The forest does not store energy in a single location. It distributes it across many forms: wood, roots, soil, organic matter. This distribution adds stability. If one part changes, the system continues through others. Energy moves through the forest without intention. It does not aim toward an outcome. It follows physical and chemical limits. When energy input decreases, processes slow. When it increases, processes proceed more actively. But the overall pace remains moderate. Bounded by the same constraints year after year, these flows do not require awareness to continue. They do not accelerate when observed. They do not pause when ignored. They remain steady because the conditions that support them remain steady. For the mind, listening to descriptions of such flows does not require tracking details. It is enough to sense that movement is happening quietly, continuously. There is no need to imagine the chemistry in detail. No need to follow carbon from one form to another. What matters here is the rhythm. Energy enters, material forms, time passes. And as time passes, the forest maintains itself through these slow exchanges. Nothing here happens suddenly. Nothing requires anticipation. The narration will continue with processes that unfold in this same gradual way. Processes shaped by repetition rather than change. The pace will remain even, the tone unchanged. You do not need to stay with the details. The flow continues on its own. As energy continues to move through the forest, material also continues to move. Not upward, but downward. Over time, parts of the forest return to the ground. Leaves fall, small branches break away. Fragments of plant material settle slowly at the surface. This does not happen all at once. It happens continuously, in small amounts. Each piece rests where it lands. There is no arrangement, no pattern that needs to be followed. As these materials collect, they begin to change. Not quickly, not in ways that are easy to see. Decomposition is a gradual process. It involves physical breakdown and chemical transformation over long periods of time. Microorganisms in the soil interact with this material. They do not act with intention. They respond to conditions: temperature, moisture, availability. When conditions allow, decomposition proceeds. When they do not, it slows. There is no fixed pace, no expected timeline. Some materials break down relatively quickly. Others remain for years, changing slowly at the surface or within the soil. As decomposition continues, nutrients are released, not suddenly, gradually.
These nutrients move into the soil. They disperse through small spaces. They become part of a larger mixture. This movement does not travel in straight lines. It spreads unevenly, guided by water flow and soil structure. Soil itself is not a single substance. It is a layered mixture of organic material, minerals, air, and water. Its formation takes time, often more time than a single tree's lifespan. Particles are shaped by weathering, by pressure, by repeated cycles of wetting and drying. These changes occur without urgency. They do not accelerate. They do not pause. Roots extend into this space gradually. They do not push forcefully. They follow paths where resistance is lower. As roots grow, they influence the soil around them. They create small channels. They alter how water moves. When roots die, they leave behind spaces. These spaces become part of the soil's structure. This cycle does not have a beginning or an end. It repeats across generations. What happens above ground is closely linked to what happens below, but the connection is not immediate. Changes at the surface may take years to affect deeper layers, and changes below may influence growth above only gradually. This delay is important. It slows the system. It buffers against sudden change. Because of this, forests tend to respond to shifts in conditions over long periods of time, not instantly. The soil does not react. It adjusts. Its behavior reflects accumulation rather than response. From one day to the next, it may appear unchanged. From 1 year to the next, differences are subtle. But measured across decades, movement is always present. Material enters. Material breaks down. Material is redistributed. This slow exchange continues without requiring attention. For the mind, this kind of process does not demand focus. There is no moment to watch for, no result to anticipate. It unfolds beneath awareness, at a pace that does not interrupt rest. As the narration continues, it will remain with these kinds of processes that change quietly, that move slowly enough to be overlooked. Nothing here needs to be followed closely. The system continues on its own. As materials continue to move slowly through the forest, connections form. Not by design, not by intention. These connections are often described as interdependence. This does not imply cooperation or awareness. It simply reflects the way processes overlap within the same space. Plants, microorganisms, and animals exist under the same conditions. They draw from the same sources of water, nutrients, and energy. Their presence influences what remains available to others. Trees extend roots into the soil. Microorganisms occupy the same spaces. They do not communicate. They respond to physical and chemical signals. Some microorganisms break down organic material. This changes the form of nutrients in the soil. Those nutrients may then be taken up by plant roots. This sequence does not require coordination. It occurs because the conditions allow it. Fungi are often present in the soil as well. Their networks extend outward, forming fine threads through the ground. These structures increase contact between roots and surrounding material. The exchange that follows is not intentional. It is driven by concentration gradients and chemical compatibility. Where resources are available, movement occurs. Where they are limited, movement slows. Animals interact with the forest in similar ways. They move through it. They consume plant material. They redistribute matter through waste and decay. These actions are not directed toward maintaining the system.
They are simply part of it. No single organism manages these interactions. There is no central process keeping balance. Stability emerges because limits are shared. Light is finite. Water availability varies. Space is constrained. As a result, growth is moderated naturally. No part expands indefinitely. This does not mean the system is fixed. Change continues, but it does so within boundaries that shift slowly. When one component alters, others respond over time, not immediately, not all at once. This delay reduces intensity. It spreads adjustment across longer periods. Because of this, forests often appear calm, even though many interactions are always underway. The word interdependence describes this overlap, but it does not imply purpose. It does not imply direction. It is simply a way of noting that processes do not occur in isolation. These relationships are shaped by proximity and timing, by what arrives first, by what remains available. They persist because the same conditions repeat. For the listener, there is no need to follow each interaction, no need to form a complete picture. It is enough to recognize that many processes coexist, quietly, without urgency. Nothing here seeks an outcome. Nothing aims toward improvement or decline. The system continues because it remains within its limits. As the narration moves forward, these ideas will not expand. They will return in simpler forms, with less detail. The rhythm remains even, the tone unchanged. There is nothing here that requires interpretation. The forest continues. Its processes overlap, and time passes without being marked. The narration will continue in the same way. By now, there is no need to keep track of what has already been said. Nothing here depends on remembering details. The ideas introduced so far do not build toward a conclusion. They do not lead to a final explanation. They simply describe processes that continue whether or not they are followed. The forest remains in place. Its structure does not shift suddenly. Energy continues to move slowly. Material continues to settle and change over time. None of this requires attention. From this point on, there will be no new concepts to learn, no new information that needs to be understood. The same ideas may return, but only to maintain rhythm. Repetition is intentional. It allows the mind to stop monitoring for change. When information remains steady, the brain no longer needs to stay alert. It can remain open without effort. Words may still be heard, but they no longer need to be processed. They can pass through without forming clear images or thoughts. The body remains supported. Breathing continues at its own pace. Nothing in the environment has shifted. There is no signal that something new is about to happen. The forest does not change direction. Its processes do not accelerate. They remain slow, even, and predictable. Leaves still fall gradually. Soil continues to adjust beneath the surface. Energy enters and moves through the system as it has before. These processes are not affected by awareness. They do not respond to being noticed. They do not pause when they are ignored. This is a point of permission. Permission to stop listening closely. Permission to let sentences blur together. Permission to allow the voice to become part of the background. There is no advantage in staying awake for what comes next. The pace will not increase. The information will not become more complex. Everything continues as it has been. If sleep arrives now, nothing is missed. If awareness drifts and returns briefly later, it can drift again just as easily. There is no correct way to experience this moment.
Some nights, rest arrives quickly. Other nights, it arrives gradually, in layers. Both are normal. The body does not need instruction. The mind does not need reassurance. The steady rhythm is enough. From here on, the narration will remain simple. Ideas will repeat softly. Details will become less distinct. The forest continues in the background, quiet, unchanging. You do not need to follow this any further. The space is already prepared for rest, and the narration will continue gently, without asking anything from you at all. Over long periods of time, forests continue to change, not in ways that can be noticed from one moment to the next, but through small adjustments that accumulate quietly. Trees grow at different rates. Some add a small amount of height each year. Others remain nearly the same for long stretches of time. These changes do not follow a schedule that can be felt. They are shaped by conditions that vary slowly. Light, water, temperature. From one season to the next, the forest may appear unchanged. From one year to the next, the differences are subtle. But across decades, movement is always present. Some trees reach maturity, others decline and fall. Openings form in the canopy, allowing light to reach lower layers. When this happens, growth adjusts. Not suddenly, gradually. Plants that were once limited by shade may begin to grow more actively. Others slow as conditions shift. This process does not aim toward improvement. It does not correct itself. It simply responds within physical limits. The overall structure of the forest remains recognizable, even as individual components come and go. This continuity does not require planning. It emerges from repetition. Similar patterns unfold again and again. Growth, stability, change, but never all at once. The pace remains slow enough that no single moment stands out. There is no clear turning point, no stage that needs to be reached. Time moves forward without emphasis. From the perspective of a single night, these changes are far beyond awareness. They do not press in. They do not demand attention. They belong to timescales where urgency does not exist. For the mind, listening to descriptions of such long-term movement does not require effort. There is nothing to track, nothing to anticipate. The forest continues across years and decades, whether or not it is being observed. The same processes return. Leaves fall. Soil adjusts. Energy moves slowly through living material. These repetitions do not signal progress or decline. They simply indicate persistence. As the narration continues, the sense of time may become less defined. Minutes do not need to be counted. There is no sequence to follow. The voice remains steady, the tone unchanged. The forest continues beyond the present moment, beyond awareness. And because of that, there is no reason to remain alert. The system does not hurry, and neither do you. The narration will continue at the same, even pace. Nothing in the forest has shifted. The same layers remain in place. The same slow processes continue. Light still moves downward through leaves. Carbon continues to settle into wood and soil. Material returns to the ground, gradually. There is no change in direction, no increase in pace. The forest does not respond to being noticed. It does not adjust to awareness. The same patterns repeat quietly. Leaves still fall. Soil continues to form beneath the surface. Roots remain where conditions allow.
These processes do not require explanation. They remain true whether or not they are followed. Repetition is enough. As ideas return, they do so without emphasis, not to be understood, only to maintain rhythm. The structure remains, the flow remains. Time passes without being marked. The voice continues in the same even way. Words arrive, then soften. Sentences do not need to be completed. Meaning does not need to stay intact. The forest remains present in the background, not as an image, not as a place, only as a steady system continuing on its own. There is nothing new here, nothing different to notice. Breathing continues. The body remains supported. Attention does not need to stay with the words. It can move freely or rest. The same ideas return gently. Layers, soil, light, time. They pass through without forming structure. Nothing important is happening, and that is enough. The rhythm continues. Nothing resolves. Nothing concludes. The forest remains as it has been. Its processes do not move toward an ending. Light continues to arrive gradually. Material continues to shift slowly. Time continues without urgency. There is no signal marking the passage from one moment to the next, no boundary that needs to be crossed. The voice remains present, but it does not ask to be followed. Words appear, then fade. Pauses may feel longer or less noticeable. Breathing continues on its own. There is no need to notice it. The body stays supported. Nothing needs to be held in place. If sleep has already arrived, the narration continues without being heard. If awareness returns briefly, it can drift again just as easily. Nothing here depends on attention. The processes being described do not change when they are ignored. They do not slow. They do not speed up. They remain as they are. There is no final thought waiting, no summary to reach. The forest does not come to an end. It continues, quietly, gradually. The words no longer carry information, only rhythm. That rhythm does not need to be understood. It can exist in the background, like distant motion, like slow change that does not announce itself. Nothing more is required. The narration continues, the system continues, and the quiet remains.